good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone around the world. I'm Paul Sisler, and this is In the Moment. Today, T-Paw has a special guest, Jay H. Colts, the author of Secrets and Songbirds. T-Paw, hello.
Hey, ho! I'm Teapot, and here to talk to Jay about their novel, as well as anything else we end up talking about, whether it's dark fantasy, whether it's anything else, and just have fun.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, let's bring your guest in. Hello, Jay.
Hey,
So,
How you?
how you doing today, Jay?
good, good. No complaints here. I've had enough caffeine. I've eaten some good food. It's a lazy Friday.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, no, I was hanging out with the wife and trying to. Basically, we're working on goal setting with the worker I was talking to you guys about before the show started, and because like the kids, they have when you grow up as a child or as a young adult and no one teaches you techniques to how to manage your emotions or to how to like just communicate effectively, and it causes derision or it causes conflict unnecessarily, and then you spend the whole time going, how am I supposed to learn this stuff? Well, the person that's been meeting with us is there to help us learn those techniques, and me, I already know a lot of it, so like it's not like it's a new concept for me. And I'm already kind of like the coach mentor type personality anyway, so it's not like it's difficult for me. But for them, it's some of it's brand new territory because like while I'm busy being a dad and then doing the author thing and then podcasting things like that, um, some things get lost in the mix. So it's nice to have Tyson there to help us help me relearn some things, but also help everyone else learn too. So that's been fun. But yeah, no, I've been last night. I actually finished writing the epilogue for Snake and the Dame, which is in a dog's perspective. So it's kind of interesting. Like you go from writing a vampire, a werewolf, fairy, whatever it is you're writing. I wrote a freaking dog who talks. So, but yeah, as far as this goes, like you wrote a book and it's called Secrets and Songbirds.
Oh,
Do you have a copy with you?
uh, yes, I see that Paul also has a copy on his shelf back there.
Yes, I do.
There's that.
Nice.
Very physical, very real, tangible as well. It smells kind of nice.
Oh yeah, no, I've got a digital copy of it. I plan on eventually getting a physical copy of it. It's just December and January always hits me hard financially, so like I have to be careful what I spend money on. And if I'm not spending money on diapers, I'm spending money on milk for the kids. And if I'm not spending money on that, I'm usually spending money on anything else that takes care of them. And usually somebody else comes along and says, "Why don't you take care of yourself?" And I'm like, "I am, kind of." But yeah, no, eventually I will own your copy or own a copy of your book. And at some point, I will get the fricker signed.
Oh, I will
Kitty!
probably sign it.
Oh yeah, no, it is. I was reading a chapter in the book. I was rereading one of the chapters in the book when I was in the bathtub last night because I bathed with bath salts because I deal with a lot of back pain and a lot of muscle pain, and it was beyond amazing meeting Thog. By the way,
Oh, he's a fan favorite. I get many feedback based on like, oh, the character's just a delight. He's a little goofball. So it's a little silly.
he's kind of like the Hulk in a sense. Like when I was reading the chapter, and I was reading the chapter with "Long Name Lady," um, I was given Black Widow Hulk vibes, but not like from like the movies, the Marvel movies. I was given it from like the comics, where like they're not having a romance, they're having an uneasy partnership and alliance. And like when like Thog like talks in very limited sentences and things like that, and like he goes, "Thog not like you," and I'm just like watching this, and I'm like, this is totally Hulk. Now just throw him against Wolverine. Let's see what happens. That's the impression I got. And then like one of the things I like the most about your story so far that I've been noticing, because every time I bring somebody on, I always talk about stuff that I like about whatever they did. Duality, themes, thematic structures, like word choices, like how you end the story with a word that seems like it ties into the theme of the story. That's one of the things I like most about it. I really dial in on the craft of that, like with my own tales. And whenever I'm reading somebody else's story, like sometimes it actually, like if they're like going into themes, they're going into like duality and like metaphors and things like that, it actually bugs me when they don't do that. Like when they don't end the chapter or the scene on a word or something that seems like it ties in. I don't know why it bugs me, but it does. And I like how yours does that.
Well, everything should be written with a purpose. Right?
Yeah. So like one of my questions I was going to ask you is that intentional? Like, do you have like that mapped out when you're writing it and like when you're editing it? Do you like have like keywords or phrases at the beginning, at the end that like tie into the whole thematic structure?
So everyone in there is essentially either based off of duality or based off of contrast or cobbled together based off of human condition, which I guess in Alfarius's and Diamante's case, I don't know if you've gotten that far yet, the paladin and the priestess.
I read one chapter where the priestess and the paladin were talking to each other, and like you've got this whole language of the church and rich versus the poor, and like how the church will spend money frivolously on their own materials, but when it comes to actually helping the people around them, they're like, you can go fuck yourself. Like that's the language there.
Did you catch that duality though? It's they're supposed to be a temple of spirituality, yet they're obsessed with the materialism.
Yes.
So that's the church for you. This horrid duality where it's like you should be worried more about their spiritual salvation, and you shouldn't be worried about taking their money, keeping them poor, and sucking up to the rich. So the church is a whole sham. But the duality between Alfarius and Diamante is Diamante's naivety and her like foolish, wishful thinking that the church is going to save them, and the church is so helpful, and the church this and that. Well, Alfarius's cynicism contrasts all that.
Yes, I caught that. I caught all of that. Like I was loving it too. Like I was reading it and everything, and I'd reread certain pages over again so I could see what else that I was missing, because they're like I could see like different meanings and different like things in your phrasing when it comes to like how you structure dialogue. Sorry, burping. When you structure dialogue and you structure like the syncopation of like the sentences and everything with how the characters talk, there's like little things that you put in there that you insert that I'm noticing, and I really like dig the shit out of it. Like it's awesome. Like I like how every sentence matters and like everything has a purpose behind it, and you're not just writing a scene and being like, oh, let's just have fun with this scene. Does it mean anything? Well, it doesn't mean anything to the main story, but I'm putting it in there anyway. Like I like how you have it to where you dial in on that duality and the double meaning behind the sociology of the town and like the culture and like how the church has, is supposed to help people. Even like the part where he's reading like he's it's essentially like the Jedi or Sith code, where they're saying the code of what they stand for, and yet everything around them, the way they communicate with their world, his cynicism, his inner dialogue, contrasts everything that's in that code. And like if they're supposed to be following the code, and yet they don't. They do in name only, is what it seems like.
Conditioning. That's all it is. The church is nothing more than conditioning. They have this whole thing where it's like psychologically you're theirs, even though your actions may not completely show that you're part of the church. You still have this mindset like, I am representing the church. I am the church. So it's like self-righteousness in the worst form.
Yes. And that's something I liked about it the most, was the fact that you included that in there, because it also like justifies like the fact that his beginning in the story isn't being chained up. In fact, that whole first paragraph is about survival. And that whole first paragraph is that whole struggle with like being able to like have having his freedom stripped away from him. And you still end the chapter with him having his freedom. Like, yeah, he may not be chained up physically, but he has his freedom essentially stripped away from him anyway,
Yeah.
because he's considered a slave to the church. And like, I like the fact that like you ended the story that way, because it really dials into that whole first paragraph and like harkens back to that first paragraph, in which that whole first paragraph is a story of its own, because it's him struggling against his chains and against the ghosts of his past. And I was like, holy shit, like this is really dialed in. It was actually one of my favorite beginnings to the story.
Oh, that one, honestly, I have a soft spot for Alfarius, just because of his own little struggle with like the conflict of, yes, I was raised by the church. Yes, I know exactly what I should be doing, but also I want my own agency. I want to be able to say that I was able to do this because of me and not because of the gods.
Exactly. And yeah, I kind of that sense of free agency that he loses, that he has to give up. And it's like, it's either death or lack of freedom. Which do you choose? Be a slave or be dead? Like that's the question that's asked when she's walking around decked in gold and everything, and he's just like going, well, just fucking kill me already. And they're just like going, no, we're just going to use you. And like, it's just this like very cynical take, but very realistic take on if you were involved in a society like that and how it would turn out. Like, it's not fuzzies, not warm fuzzies at all. Even like the food they're eating in the cafe is kind of like a metaphor.
I was hoping you'd catch that. Yes, whenever you like in any of them, like even with Eleonora and Thog, I don't know if you've gotten to the scene where they're at the Prancing Platypus, which the Prancing Platypus is another metaphor for, of course, capitalistic consumerism and the conglomerates, that they just are everywhere. They essentially set the prices because they've already gotten to every other place, and no one can beat them because Walmart syndrome,
Yes.
In any case, when they're eating food, it's very interesting in their case, because Thog doesn't know about any of this. He doesn't know. Like, Thog is the outsider, completely the outsider. He's a half-orc. This is his first time interacting with any sort of civilization or any sort of, like, established norm outside of, like, I'm going to go hunt for my food and then eat it. So it's, like, the self-sufficient entering into consumerism. It's really what it is.
Yes. Yeah. No. And I actually, that's one of the things I like most about Thog, is he is the outsider. He's me going in the story. Like, he's not involved or not tied to anything. And the part where I like the most is that the story in that chapter with her begins with her trying to get paid money, and her like even willing to try and befriend him just to get his coin. And he's just like, stupid metal, and throws it, and it's like, it means nothing to him. He's all about, he's like that's not what heroes do. And you're just like, watch this, you're like, wait a minute, is he talking about being a hero right now? Like, this is pretty cool. Like, he's like throwing away, he's discarding the value of the money, and he's caring more about the honor of the fight, and he's caring more about being a hero than he is anything else. And he's just like, stupid metal, and she's like, but this metal's beautiful. And he's just like, it's stupid. And then like, why, like, he even demolishes that wall, like, as he like, they're fighting and stuff. And like, he's gonna cost them more money.
Doesn't he use the metal to repair his weapons?
Yes, he uses what he calls the strong metal, because not only is it green, which he's green, so he's like, I'm green, it's green, I'm strong, you're strong. That he's this simple, very simple man. But also, it's one of the dwarven metals it's like one of the hardest metals to be able to shape, fold, or mold. Yet he just primitively smashes those coins that have more value than gold onto his hammer to make a stronger weapon to fight. So his whole ideology is to completely discard economy or capitalism.
Right.
But Eleonora being part of the Heroes Guild and Thog joining because he saw the word hero, wants to be a hero, they don't match. See, heroes in this world, part of the Heroes Guild, they care only about one thing. How much does the job pay? Not who am I saving, not what do I have to kill, just how much do I get paid so that I can then go out and use that money. And the economy of this world is fucked because of the 1% being heroes. Heroes,
Yep.
assholes that kill and don't care who get hurt during the fight so long as they kill their objective, go home, claim the money, get drunk, eat what they want. Heroes are not heroes in this world.
It's kind of like The Boys, the TV show The Boys, where like the superheroes with Vought, like their whole purpose is to like be the most like sinister characters, and yet they're painted by the media and painted by the world as heroes, and yet they're actually pretty dangerous. It's a very similar thing there. I actually liked it a lot because of the fact that it really brings into the question, you know, what makes a hero? And that's something that I saw as a hidden question at the end of that chapter with Thog, was what actually creates a hero? Is it somebody who gets paid to be a hero, get paid to go off and do the thing, kill the monster, save some people? Or is it somebody that's willing to do it without getting paid? And it really seems like Thog would be totally cool with just going out and being noble and, you know, killing, you know, a monster and helping save a town and not even bothering to collect the money because, as he calls it, stupid metal. Especially when she tries to use the whole, oh, you could swipe me if you don't kill me type thing. Like she's totally offering herself up for sex.
Oh yeah, Eleonora will use any underhanded tactic because in her mind, honor is for the dead. Why wouldn't I result in underhanded techniques? It means you're dead and I get paid. So to hell with your rules, your ideology, leave that for nobles. Leave that for somebody who gives a damn. Eleonora is strictly there to do her job, get paid, get drunk. She likes getting drunk.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing I noticed, was that she's very much the mercenary type, which she was a funny character, not gonna lie. Like she was very funny because like she appeals to the reader's selfishness. She appeals to the reader's ability to connect to a selfish being, especially since typically in a dark fantasy or even a fantasy story, you'd expect the character to like be selfless and she like, I'm a hero, so I'll be noble. But her, she's like, so when am I getting paid? And how can we like up the ante on getting paid? And like all she cares about is, you know, getting paid and indulging and you know, getting the prize is essentially what it is. Even when the person's like, we can't afford that, she's like, well, find a way to afford it.
It's absolutely about the material. Absolutely
Yes.
about the material. And there is a lot of notion in that, but you'll see that those who are more interested in the physical, in the material, survive. While those who are trying to be noble, trying to be good people, trying to actually, you know, give a fuck about this world, they'll get died or they get used.
Yes. Yeah, that's what's
Realism.
that, Paul?
I said more like the real world.
Realism.
Yes. Yeah, there was quite a bit of like realism. Like this is not a novel for escapism. This is a novel to make you think. Like this is a novel to provoke thought and to provoke you to ask, how would you react in this situation in this world? How would you try to change it if you didn't like it? Would you give in to the cynicism and the apathy that everyone else has, or would you try and do something about it and then get frustrated in the process when it seems like they literally profit off of suffering and materialism? Like that's something that, you know, I liked about it a lot, was because I haven't read the whole book. I've read the, you know, a lot of the beginning, a lot of the opening, because I haven't had time to read the whole thing. I apologize, but yeah. So, but I've been able to like dissect a lot of what is in there. And one thing I also liked about the story was when you brought in the necromancer and you brought in the necromancer's student and they were learning how to resurrect the dead. And you included the words like the imagery of light in with the imagery of death. And you included light and darkness in that passage, in that whole thing. And you included the one character who doesn't like touching people, but is totally needing to do that in order to do what they need to do as a necromancer. And I like the imagery you put in there, the duality, the dancing syncopation between light and darkness and death and the living. Like, it seemed like those were the true characters. That whole story there was like a whole living in the dead.
Tenebris is the death elf, and he is the one that despises the living. He'll say eventually in the book that he prefers the dead because they don't talk back, which is morbid, absolutely. But it also shows you that somewhere along the line, that boy got messed up, and he does not want to socialize. He is completely shut down and shut in to himself. So, be that
I love that part,
or because the necromancer is a bloody vampire, but something messed him up. And this book really likes to dive into trauma and the traumatizing others. It's a cycle. It's a chain. So,
yes, the real world. I associate it all with the real world. You know, those that are in power like to traumatize, control, enslave, whatever. You know, those that are, you know, considered to be lesser.
Mm-hmm.
Keep buying. Exactly. Yep. Keep buying our stuff. Keep going out and doing what you're doing. Make us rich.
Yeah. I think that's
all it is if I'm not remembering all the characters and the names in my brain because I've got a headache.
No worries.
I'm just like enjoying the craft that you put into this, and like just the level of intensity you did into creating this entire world. Like even the part like where like the years are different, like the months are different. Like there's so many different things, like different nuances that are in this that the average reader may miss because of the fact that they're only reading the surface level of the story rather than looking into the deeper meanings. Well, so I commend you for putting that much thought into it.
Oh, no worries. But like I said before, I only write with meaning. So like there's an obsession with small little details, like Tenebris, who is the death elf, who is a necromancer, is named Tenebris, which is sort of a Latin word, which means, the darkness. So Tenebris is a death elf who deals in the darkness. He is named after the darkness. So every single character actually has a name which has sort of a double meaning or a deeper meaning. So even the names were obsessive in crafting, like Alfarius, it rhymes with nefarious. His whole life his whole demeanor is quite nefarious. So each one.
Yeah, no, I loved how like all your names also have like different meanings, and like how they relate to the story is very poetic. There's a very poetic synchronicity with how the story functions, and I feel like I've only brushed the surface. Like there's, you know, even though like when I messaged you, I think it was a couple weeks ago, and like asked you a couple questions about whether something was intentional or not, and I was showing you some of the analytics that I was looking at it, and I was like kind of wondering some things about it. You seem like you enjoyed my, you know, analysis and things like that. But really what I was like really enjoying was just the level of craft you put into it. And one thing I do want to ask you is what brought you to writing Secrets and Songbirds?
A complete disdain for the world we live in. There was no magic or dragons, so I just made my own.
So it's like you were walking around and you're like, there's no dragons, there's no like magic stuff, we need to just add something to that. Yeah, that's essentially what you did.
Yeah, see, now I get this because the books that I'm writing, I'm doing the same thing. The things that I really don't like about society are in my books. That's basically the premise of what's going on. And yeah, the good guys don't always win. So I love it.
It's good.
And then also, what were some of your influences with this story?
Let's see. Kentaro Miura, Are you familiar with the Berserk series?
The Berserk series?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not.
No, I don't think so.
That's all right. It's a dark thing.
Unfortunately.
It's big sword guy fighting pretty boy demon man. I'm really not selling it, but in any case, a lot of blood, a lot of gore, a lot of really dark things. It deals a lot with like trauma and inner conflict, and it gets messed up. I'd just say read it, watch it, enjoy the ride. The Golden Age arc is probably, of course, renowned at this point. It's absolutely phenomenal. Plenty of movie adaptations and anime series. But besides him, I would also say George R.R. Martin. I'm a big fan of his work, both in the whole Song of Ice and Fire series, but also his spin-offs. And the TV shows are pretty good.
I like a lot of Game of Thrones. I really appreciate the level of craft George took with his world and with his characters. Very much reminds me, or at least the other way around, your level of craft with your characters in the world very much reminds me of George R. R. Martin.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment. I'm a big fan of his.
Now,
Yeah, like I was reading it. Go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
I have a question because I mean I've only heard what you've read in different spaces and stuff like that. I still haven't had the time to read it. Do you have a lot of politics in it, kind of like the way Game of Thrones had it? I mean, even though it wasn't constantly seeing people in meetings and voting on shit and stuff like that and writing laws, but the whole aspect of how things are done, and how you move up in the world and things like that, the political aspect of that, is that in this book?
So it touches some aspects of that in the first book, but they only allude to what's going to actually happen in the second book. But in the second book, which is just about done, I just got to go revise few little things, and I'll be sending it off to the publisher. Hopefully by the end of this month, if not by the end of next month. But in the second book, it actually dives deep into the actual war itself. It's hinted at so the emperor has finally succeeded. He has united all of the other kingdoms except for the kingdom of the light elves, in which they just don't. They refuse to be ruled over by a human. They believe themselves to be much superior than the human race or the dwarven race or any other lesser subspecies, as they call them, of elves. So with those kingdoms united, not even that far after the emperor has become the emperor, he dies. So now he has to leave it up to his son. But a different son, the guy who's supposed to have its brother, steals it from underneath his nose. Yeah, he literally flips the script, gets his father to give it to him instead, and now he's ruining everything. And the other kingdoms are starting to hate this because he started to enact some crazy laws like, all right, cool, so the elves won't fold, kill them. Kill every single light elf. I don't care who they are. If they have pointed ears, cut them off, and I will pay handsomely for each one of those ears.
Wow.
So he's doing that. Now the light elves have even more of a reason to go after him. And some of the dwarven clans are on board now with the light elves. Some of the other human races are on board with the light elves. So now because of that, there's now inner conflict between the kingdoms, not even a year after they had been united. Because unity doesn't last if it's not under the right leader.
Right.
So all hell breaks loose. And in the third book, that's when the actual stuff starts happening, the actual war. A little bit happens towards the end of the first book where this comes into light, and then they know, holy shit, we need to do something about this. Second book pops in, and now its sides are being drawn, lines in the sand. Third book, the hell breaks loose because it has to. So, yeah. Politics, definitely politics. I love politics.
Yes. Oh, I know you do. I've had some conversations with you. I've heard you in a couple of spaces where we get into politics, and Don't let Jay fool you, everybody. Okay, Jay knows what's going on in the world. Trust me.
They just look like an 80s rock star.
Yeah.
They are an 80s rock star. 80s rock star who happens to know about politics. Yeah, no, I actually saw a lot of that political stuff going on, by the way, Paul, between the religious leader and the paladin. So, like, he's basically having to take on the creed of the church and having to carry out missions for them. And there's this giant interplay between himself and the church. Not like, yes, she's dressed in gold. Yes, she's basically having him sign away his life to serve the church. But there's this interplay that is unspoken, that is between the church and the individual, that is a very political subtext that's going on, in which he is progressively giving up more and more of his freedom as an individual and co-signing on to the universal body of the church itself. And like there's this giant like interplay between the two that's very reminiscent and very real to our own world, between the individual and the church, because a lot of the church operates as one big body, and you have like your leaders and you have like your, you know, peasants of sorts that that operate within the church. But there's always this universal language of almost oppressive language, depending on what church you're in which you are giving up your freedom to co-sign on to this universal body of an overhead leader and its, you know, its subjects essentially. And there's this very like subtext language going on between the two. So if you want your politics, you'll get plenty of that in the story.
Oh, definitely. Got to have the politics in there.
I just figured I'd bring that up too, since you guys are talking about that. That's one thing that I like about the story a lot, is the fact that even though you're reading the words and even though you're absorbing the story, right? There's the story, and then there's the story within the story that's going on. And oftentimes, even with like specific paragraphs or turns of phrases, or like, let's say, okay, kind of like if you're watching a movie, you have like your entire 2-hour runtime, or you have an hour and a half runtime. There are some movies that will have a 5-minute piece in the movie where it feels like it's a movie within a movie. Like, right. I will joke around and say, oh, that's the horror movie in this story. Or, oh, you got like this little short film that's kind of like a mini sequel to this other story. And with Jay's work, that is kind of what it is. It's like there's little pieces in the story that have their own thing going on that is in symbiosis with the rest of the tin. And I don't know if that's intentional on Jay's part or if that's just something that happened.
I actually got something quite interesting. Okay, so this book, it's in chronological order. If you look at the dates at the beginning of every chapter, it's like, okay, this day, then this day, then this day, and they all go, you know, chronological order. The second book, so originally there were supposed to be 3 books in one, right? That was my plan. But unfortunately, due to certain restraints with the publisher, it needed to be shortened down. So instead of just deleting all that, they got turned into 3 books. So the second book, when it comes out, if you look at the dates, they actually intermingle with these. So the second book's in chronological order, but there are dates in here that come after one of the dates in here, or before another one of these dates. And you'll see the story behind the story. And it starts getting crazier when you're like, oh, shit. So while this was happening, that was happening. So that's why this happened here, because of the shit in this one. So you'll start seeing more and more of the perspective around the world.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I love that. I love it.
My obsession. So yeah, once you have all 3 books, my plan is to then get them edited and hopefully at that point combine them into one solid book so that you can just buy the whole thing at the end with edits and a bit more added in, just so that it's not like, oh, it's just a re-release and all that bullshit. No, it's same, but different.
Here's what's going on in England, and I hope you enjoyed this story in England. So book 2, here's what's going on in the United States, and this is why this was going on in England. I love it.
It's in tandem. It's in tandem.
Yeah.
It's almost like a companion novel, even though it's a sequel. Like there's a companion novel in there in the mix with the sequel.
So does book
Kicks
3
ass.
bring both of these books together, or
Book 3 will reveal to you the okay, I don't want to say it because then that's a spoiler.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna be like, is it a spoiler?
Don't say it. Don't say it.
But book 3 is going to actually be like, holy shit! All right, cool. I got this perspective and this perspective, but who the fuck is this? And how the fuck did I not realize that they were mentioned at the very beginning of the first book and caused all this fuckery?
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yes, no, that's great. One thing I was going to ask you is, what's a standout moment in this story? Like something that spoke to you when you're writing it? Because I'm sure the whole book speaks to you, yes. But what are some highlighted moments that are in the story that are your favorite, or that are just simply just things that, you know, when you look at it, you're like, that's where this story clicked, or that's where this, you know, that's what's kick-ass about this.
When you realize that the monster was following you the whole time.
Oh wow.
Okay, so it's kind of like a monster movie within the story as
The
well.
dark fantasy, it has horror elements. You haven't gotten to them yet because you're still in like the establishing shots, a little bit of like poetic intrigue here and there. But I think as soon as you hit chapter, I don't know if you've gotten to it yet, but let's see, chapter, I think it's Alfarius. So chapter 10. As soon as you're at chapter 10, you realize, holy shit, here there be monsters.
Oh, fuck. Okay, this is going to be great. So if you don't mind, Paul, I'm going to do a sequel interview very soon when I've just like devoured the rest of this majesty of a book. And like, if Jay's up for it, we're going to do another interview with him.
Oh, definitely.
And we're going to like, we're going to like deep dive into the material. Cause like right now it's just kind of touching the base and it's kind of like doing like surface level stuff. But I want to like deep dissect. It's not like one of those podcasts where you watch a Batman movie and you're like just doing a replay. It's more like, let's talk about this shit. Let's really go into the subtext and really go into like what's in here, because like that'd be fun for me. If you're up for that.
Always up for an interview. Always.
Hell yes. And like it depends on how much are you willing to spoil of the story like later on? Oh,
all of it. The second book's going to be out, so if people haven't read it by then, it's like, well, you goofed. Why are you on here? We'll just have a little tag, spoilers for Secrets and Songbirds or something. If they pop in and watch it, like, come on, you saw this interview where I was no spoilers, but you popped into the other. Come on, this was on you.
And unless you actually read the book, because I've heard you read probably about, I don't know, maybe about 6 to 8 chapters out of this book. Okay. And granted, every part that I've heard you read is just fucking awesome. Okay. I mean, you're the one that dragged me in with your mesmerizing voice into the whole writers, community here, and your story is just awesome. And I have yet to read it myself. I just haven't had the time, but I have some context to it. But until, again, I start from chapter 1 and go all the way through, it's meaningless. So yeah, you can delve into any one chapter or 2 chapters and you're going to be like, I can't wait to read this book. And you don't have any, there are no spoilers unless you read the whole damn book, well, we don't have time to do that, but if you would have to read the whole book to spoil it, whoops, sorry.
So what I say is later today, after this podcast is done and after it's in the books and stuff, later today, Paul is going to open up the book and start reading it. And then I'm gonna start hitting up Paul and being like, "Hey, by the way, bro, what do you think about this part?" And be like, "I'm not there yet." And I'm like, "Get cracking."
And I wish I could say you were right, but unfortunately you're not. I'm waiting for my USB storage device so I can start transferring stuff from my computer into storage because of all the shows that I'm doing, the books that I'm writing, and everything else. I'm running out of room on my computer. I had to upgrade my iCloud storage, and it's just like, okay, I can't keep up. I'm telling you, it's so. Oh, I jumped into this, and it's a lot to keep up with. It's a lot
Just
to
go
keep
on
up.
Amazon and like look for a 6 terabyte or even like just a 2 terabyte if that helps you.
I got a 5 terabyte coming, and yes, so I already ordered. I did this yesterday. I ordered it yesterday. It'll be here next week. So for me, I still have to finish writing Rainbow Prophecy Book 1 Blood Schism. I got to get that done. I only got a month and a half here, and I've got to submit it. So I got to get that finished up. So I'm trying to get organized. In 2 days is my wife's anniversary of her death, and I've been trying to get through all of this, and she just had her birthday and all of that stuff, and I'm finally getting my wits together. And I like this morning, I finally got back up at 5:30 in the morning, like I was doing. So this is like my first step coming out of this depression that I had. So for me, it's like, Jay, I will get you your book probably end of March. And
Sounds good.
And when's your second book come out? Because that's what I'm looking forward
End of March.
See, that'll be I will read once mine's submitted, and I don't have to worry about that. I will read yours, and then when book 2 comes out, bam, I'm on it.
It's gonna be great. I'll be able to hold 2 books. Two books.
You'll be double fisting.
I will be double fisting. I'll have one bird, and the other one's going to be an orange hydra. So this one's Secrets and Songbirds. Haha, funny joke. The other one's going to be hoaxes and hydras. It'll be a hydra. Haha, funny.
Okay.
Anyway.
Nice. No, I love that. What monsters do you put in these stories, by the way? And what inspires them?
In the first book, the biggest monster is going to be the songbird. So that's why it's on the front. Much like the second book, the biggest monster is going to be a hydra. Third book, Deceptions and Dragons, it's going to be a dragon. So kind of like that. But these books hold other creatures in them. You got your goblin, standard little monster. You got your orcs. Well, it's a half orc, dog, half orc. And so there are different monsters, but I always like to put the big baddie on the front and then make you wonder when it's going to show up, or if it does show up, when it's going to do something bad. Or if this is even the songbird.
It makes me wonder what the songbird, like what makes the songbird a baddie.
Well, besides his horrible puns?
Yes. Like, if it's a songbird, you would think a songbird is like a good thing or a good omen or something like that. But you turn him into a bad omen. So that you already inverted the narrative right there.
That's what I do. It's my bread and butter.
You Ryan Johnson this shit.
Got a question for you, Jay. In the book that I'm writing, there's a romance aspect where Iris and Donovan are getting to know each other. And I thought of you because he asks her what's her favorite book. And I initially and all that, I took something from my past and I put it in there and I wrote it and all that. I was wanting to know if I could change it to Secrets and Songbirds.
I would be honored. It'd be a nice little wink and a nod.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Only because when we did the fan fiction on the one, somebody did like a Harry Potter type thing and all that, and he's laying there with the Secrets and Songbirds. Again, it was like, I wonder if Jay would be okay with me putting his book in my book.
Of course, I'd be honored. I'd even have to point it out every time. Just be like, hey, I'm reading this book. Oh yeah, what's this book? Well, this book is an inception of my book. See, look right here. That's my book in that book. It's the book in the book.
That makes me want to actually do the same thing. Like, there's a library that's in Heroicum Academy that the kids go to, the teenagers go to for school. And in that library, the only thing I really talked about is the fact that there are books everywhere, and there's been some titles that were said, but it was primarily tying in the witchcraft of the coven that Trinity's finding out that her past is related to. And so I was thinking about actually doing a thing where there are like little Easter eggs of like the real world, whether it's something from Paul, something from Jay, something from Diana, like different little Easter eggs that only certain people would ever catch. I was thinking about doing that, but I never asked anybody if I could, but I haven't done it yet. So I figured now that Jay has greenlit that for Paul,
got it. Again, I'd be honored to be mentioned in somebody else's work. That's grand.
My characters are fourth wall breakers, so it also makes sense. Like if they're like going, like if they made a joke about, you know, the person who wrote the book and where they are, and you know, in the real world, it'd be funny if in like a future novel or something, like a future novel, like let's say volume 5 or 6, like there's like a fourth wall break with a character named Jay, and Jay is hanging out with Jace.
Be hilarious.
Because Jace is already a fourth wall break of himself, because Jace is a incarnation of Jay from Jay and Silent Bob. I just changed his name and changed some of the things about him to make him a different character. But it'd be so interesting as if Jay and Jace were hanging out with each other.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I would have fun writing it myself, because of the fact that, you know, I'd be like, hey, this is funny. Then I'm like writing down the story and stuff, and then like send you the excerpt to, you know, show you what it looks like, because, you know, why not? What monsters do you draw from Cthulhu mythology? What mythology do you draw from when you put the monsters in your stories?
All right. Well, since you're talking about that, I am absolutely a big fan of cosmic horrors. In fact, I try to incorporate a bit of cosmic horror into it, along with body horror and, of course, just cosmic comedy. So once you get to chapter 10, you'll see the body horror. You'll see this horrid abomination that lives inside of the Black House on Stanislaus Street. The damned, bloody demon beast. So that's the thing that they were alluding to go and investigate the house on Stanislaus Street. So once you get to that chapter with Alfarius, you'll see that horror.
Okay, so the tension that's building at the beginning and like them talking about it, because I noticed that like you mentioned the beast at the beginning, and then you had the next chapter, you had a person who actually had encountered the beast, and so you were kind of building up the imagery of the beast and slowly building up the gravity of the situation, and so you will eventually run into the beast and preferably get your ass kicked.
Yeah. Eleonora talked about her encounter with the beast in the sewers. You don't actually get to read about that because that's in the second book. In the second book, you actually get more perspective from the Black Beast.
Nice.
So that bloody demon beast in the second book is just has been completely intertwined the whole time.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So it's kind of like as I called the symbols that are on the top of the chapters, it's kind of like a mini game.
Oh yes. The symbols. So it's a cipher. probably can't see it, but on the bird itself is the beginning of the cipher. And yes, they are in Roman numerals, but it isn't so much about the Roman numerals. It's about the fact that they are numeric. So you have to figure out what those numbers actually equal to, or what they're trying to say. But I'm not a computer. I can't read numbers. It'd be easier if they were in letters.
Okay.
Biggest hint ever.
It's funny is I was actually looking up what each number meant, and like looking up their meanings, so I could like, okay, this chapter means this, this, and this when it comes to ciphers, so I could try to crack the code.
Well, it's a bit simpler than that. I wouldn't say that it's like, oh, each one of these numbers represent a very specific sort of deeper meaning. No, it's more like just turn these numbers into letters. It's that's it.
Okay.
That's simple. And yet you got 26 letters to choose from.
Mm-hmm. And you have to realize what number it equals to where. Is it as simple as it being A equals 1? Or is it as complicated as A being every other prime number in the sequence? Who knows?
Only Jay knows for right now, but soon T-Paul will learn. I'll even have like a whole thing written out too. Like I'll show you an entire graph, and you'll just be like, "How? What is the status?" As I connect all the dots.
Oh yeah, and not every chapter has that little numerical code. Like if you look on, Thog's chapter, Thog doesn't have a cipher. Thog's own chapter doesn't have a cipher. But if you go to someone like Eleonora does. Eleonora has a cipher.
Okay.
So does Alfarius and Tenebris. So you got to figure that out as well.
Yes. All right. Now that sounds fun to me. Like basically, people, when you read Jay's book, not only will you get hidden meanings, metaphors, poetic symmetry, even the way some of the stuff is designed is run in tandem with each other, but you also get puzzles, lots of puzzles, and you get like, so you get mini games and things. Like this is I know that Paul said it's like real life, but I think that honestly it's still in its own form of escapism, because you have monsters, you have heroes, you have dark fantasy magic, you have a church that runs in tandem with magic and its own self. Like you have all sorts of the things, all the elements that would make escapism work for the individual. This book has it. It's just a bit more gothic.
Oh, everything I do is a bit more gothic. It has to have that sort of flair, the aesthetic, the little signature.
Yes, exactly.
Now, my only question is, these numbers, is that 3 letters on the front?
Yes, just 3.
Okay. All right.
The way that the spaces kind of denote the beginning and the end for the first letter.
Yep.
And another big hint is, because this isn't marked as a chapter, this is the thing that encompasses the whole thing. This will be your first word for all 3 of those sentences.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll keep that note. And where can everybody find this novel, by the way?
Well, this novel is available on Amazon. You could also find it on Goodreads and on my publisher's website. So that's all.
And what's the publisher's name?
The publisher is Castle Carrington. So it's kind of nice. They got a neat little logo. It's a little castle. I think it suits this fantasy aesthetic.
Oh, absolutely, it does. Very much does. And what are your, like, aside from writing Secrets and Songbirds, aside from writing the next book and the next book, Any other books in the series you're going to be writing, or any other future plans?
9. There are 9 books in total.
Okay.
So the way that I've kind of mapped it out is the first 3 correlate with each other, one after another. The first 2 are intertwined until they're not towards the end, so it gives off a little bit more of the timeline. And then the third book is intertwined with the second book and the first book, but then it gives you that finale of what I like to call the first arc, which I just call it from white to gray. So purity to a gray area. Then the next arc is going to have a bit of a time skip, quite a bit of a time skip. So that one is going to be another 3 books, going to be mapped out pretty much the same. Going to be following pretty much the same people, unless they're dead. But in any case, then after those 3, that one's going to be from gray to black. Those 3, and then another time skip, and then the final 3 books, which is going to be called From Black to White. That little era. But each one of them is just going to be called like Secrets and Songbirds, Hoaxes and Hydra, Dragons, Deception. And I think the one after that is Fairies and Fables. But yeah, so on and so forth until the 9 books.
Okay, so every trilogy has like its own theme going on.
Essentially it does. It's about essentially. Oh God, it's so complex. But it'll have a rainbow when it's done. It's gonna be red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, pink, indigo. You know, it's gonna. Each one of these is gonna be a different color of the rainbow. It'll be fun and magical.
All right, awesome. Paul, do you have any questions for him?
The beginning of every chapter where you have these ciphers, does this just form one long sentence?
Nope, 3 sentences, but each one start off with this word right here.
Got it.
So there are only 3 sentences in there. There's one for Tenebris, Eleonora, and Alfarius. Why those 3? In the book, you'll find out.
Got it.
All right. Awesome stuff. And what else? What are your so if you had a bucket list of projects you wanted to ever work on, what would the bucket list be?
Bucket list of projects. Like in writing?
Writing, filmmaking, anything.
Okay, so for writing, 9-book series, 3 spin-offs. And the spin-offs would specifically be one for Thog and then Thog's son. Spoiler. One for the Mad Mage, and then one for the Immortal Kissed by the Night. So 3 spin-offs. That's it. After those, I was hoping to, at one point, maybe when these are done, maybe somewhere down the line. Big fan of sci-fi, specifically like cybernetics, robots, lasers, pew pew. You know, not post-apocalyptic, just late stage capitalism in the far future. Because I'm kind of expecting capitalism to die very, very slowly, like painfully slowly, to the point where corporations would probably have private police and all this other horrifying stuff.
Yes.
But in time, I might do that. It'll be fun. It'll be space and lasers, pew pew.
Yes.
After that, I'm thinking TV show. I'd much rather have a TV show than a movie, because a movie is always limited to like 2 hours, 3 if you got enough pull and you got a big devoted fan base. But like, good luck, you're not DC or Marvel, so you're probably not getting 3 hours.
Right.
So a TV show. I'd much rather a nice little stream it on your streaming, you know, eat your popcorn at home on the TV.
Binge watch a whole season, first season, book 1.
There you go.
Yes.
That would be, I mean, shit, maybe, how long is this book? Like 30 somewhat episodes? 30 chapters?
It's like 28 chapters for the first book that I saw.
28. Yes. Okay. So then it is 30 because there is an epilogue and a prologue. So 30, I believe. But in either case, 30 episodes. Yeah, maybe 15 episodes. Hour long, 15 episodes, 1 hour. That'd probably get the whole thing right there. And then season 2 for book 2. And then season 3, maybe like a 9-season run, 15 episodes, hour long.
Yep. Standard today is like 8 episodes. So you'd be looking at like half of the book. Or you could do kind of like some of your shows. I think it's like I think The Walking Dead. I think they do like a split season where it's 16 episodes for the season. 8 in the first half, 8 in the second half. I think they started doing something like that, split seasons. So yeah, you could do a whole book in a season, 16 episodes.
Hey, HBO, are you listening? HBO Max.
Somebody, HBO Max would definitely be who I would go for. Like if they offered me a contract, I wouldn't even look. I'd just be like, done. Why? Because now technically I'm in the same universe as DC. Batman crossover? Yes. Hell yes. What happened? Right? Not work.
I would be happy with the Netflix series.
But the problem is when you get to like seasons 2 and 3, though, Netflix eventually just cancels your show because all they care about is getting new subscribers.
Yeah, I mean, look at what's happening with The Witcher. They should have kept Henry Cavill, but they're different. These are different. I won't get into it. But HBO, hell yeah, sign me up.
Yep. Get a good 8 to 12 seasons. Be the next Sopranos. There you go.
And I would lose it.
I would take an anime series. I would take anything. I would take a movie. Shit. You know, anything to get you exposure so that when you have the next saga that you write, bam, can we sign you? Can we sign you?
I kind of need my baby to be on HBO because like that's like I love what they're doing with most of their fantasy stuff. Like there's literally no loss there. They're doing great. But we don't talk about the end of Game of Thrones. But anyway, it's great.
The last like 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I honestly like the way that it ended. I wasn't against it. Like, yeah, she's a Targaryen. Her father was completely mad. Of course she burned everything down. She has dragons. Why wouldn't she?
Right.
I feel like they needed to make the Daenerys arc there for season 8. That season should have been 2 or 3 seasons in itself.
Oh,
yeah,
definitely.
They should have.
But again, the show outran the writer.
It did.
Exactly.
The show outran the writer. So now it's like, okay, I got to put something together. How do I end this? You know?
Plus, I think at the end of it, the directors themselves who were working on it were burnt out and kind of done with it. So, they stopped giving a shit. Martin didn't finish his writings, which, again, no hurry. He takes his time for a reason. But could have been a bit more work there. But House of the Dragon's great. Love House of the Dragon. No complaints there. That stuff is fucking chef kiss.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I love House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon is kick ass. Like it's like so different seeing Matt Smith go from playing a doctor from Doctor Who and other roles he's done to now playing this Targaryen guy who's like ruthless and calculating and just everything. Like I when I watch Matt Smith on that show, I just go, holy fuckballs, dude.
Well, that's what you get when you have Matt Smith and good writing. But like
exactly.
I've seen some of the others, like Morbius. What the fuck was up with Morbius? he was in Morbius. He played like the antagonist or something. But anyway,
yes.
All right. Well, Jay, thank you again for coming on here. Appreciate it. Looking so forward to reading your first. I can't wait until your second one comes out. I hope it gets out there for you and all that. I hope it makes all your dreams come true, and I hope you keep writing. You're an awesome writer.
Oh, very gifted writer, and your sound went off.
We couldn't hear you, Jay.
I still can't hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear you either.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, now I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Second one. I'm under contract, so I got to get it out there. If I don't get the second one out, then I'm breaching contract.
Well, get it out there.
Get it out there, because you're a gifted writer. You're imaginative. You're beyond creative, and you're all around awesome. And so I can't wait to have that podcast episode we were talking about, where we deep dive into the world and deep dive into the story, because that's going to be fun for me.
Me neither, man. Like I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a blast. I love really going into it. Also, as you're moving forward reading, whenever they count out coins or talk about wands or cups or swords, it's tarot card references.
Yes.
Keep an eye on the number of them. Yeah. Keep an eye on the number of them and then look it up, and you can be like, oh shit, impending doom. Read some more. Oh shit, doom. It's kind of already there.
Nice. All right. I'll definitely keep an eye out there. But yeah, it's been a pleasure talking to you about your craft, about your work, and about, all things Jay Colts and Magnovi. And I don't have a copy of it, unfortunately. This is digital. But I appreciate everything you do. Appreciate you gifting the world with your presence and with your works. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much in the moment. I'm T-Paw.
And I'm Paul Sisler. This has been In the Moment, the Vellum with T-Paw and Jay special guest. Thank you, everybody. Remember, be kind, be happy, make good things come your way.
Have a week.